Thank you. Dick Randazzo, former supervisor of the town of Cornwall. I served 20 years as Cornwall supervisor, elected and re-elected 10 times. I began my political career as a trustee in the village of Cornwall on Hudson. Served that for 3 years before moving on to be town supervisor. Clearly, I've been saying, because I believe it's true, this is the most important election of our lifetime. There's no question. When you look at what's going on in our state and our country, Albany and Washington just don't solve any problems anymore. And working families, middle-class families, have really borne the brunt of the government's misfunction, if you will. A number of issues that I think are critical. Certainly, school property tax reform is certainly high on the list. When I went back in, I was left office as supervisor in 1999. When I went back in office in 2004, in the spring of 2004, I got our town board to adopt a resolution to call on Albany to change the way we fund public education, to take it off the back of the property owner. And I reached out. Clearly, in the past 5 years, almost 5 years, I really have been the leader of property tax reform in Cornwall and in Orange County. Sent resolutions, tried to get other municipalities involved. Couldn't get much action the first year. But in the spring of 2005, I didn't give up on it, and I had the town board, we appointed a joint committee. We invited school board members to come on and sit with us and some members of the public. And very briefly, we put together a model using Cornwall Central School District. Having school board members, we were able to get 20 years of data, which was not easy from talking to other groups that I've worked with in the state. But we did. We put this model together that showed how much the burden has grown on property owners over the years, and the state had not kept up with its fair share. A couple issues just on tax, and then I'll move on to a couple of those. Clearly, I support a property tax cap. There's no question. But I think there's some problems with the cap, and I'll just name a couple. Number one, the cap does nothing to provide immediate relief to property owners who are overburdened beyond their means right now. That's critical. Number two is, if we're going to have a cap, we have to be able to address the underlying causes that drive spending. And part of that certainly is unfunded mandates. But let me just give you a quick example on the cap. And I'll use my own school district. Last year, the Cornwall Central School District received what they say is a record increase in state aid, which was about 17%. Even with that record 17%, our property taxes still went up 3.5%, under the 4% cap. This year, we almost had repeat performance. They got 16.9%, almost another record. Our school property taxes still went up about 1%. So it really has done nothing to bring the spending or the burden on the property owner under control. I also support the circuit breaker. I think that's, right now, is maybe the most doable by giving taxpayers a break based on income. But my ultimate goal is that I believe the state should fund public education through a property tax that's statewide, collected by the state, and that they pay for what's determined to be a basic quality education of the state of New York. That does two things. It takes the burden off the property owner, which as a group just can't do it anymore. And the second thing that it does is it assures every child in New York State an opportunity for an equal education in New York State, which doesn't exist now. A lot of it depends on wealth of community and what have you. But there are other issues. In addition to that, I mean, we have to get state spending under control. There's no question.
Okay, can we get back to that? Because I think you both, one more thing for you too, and then we'll get on to questions.
All right, no, just state spending. I think we've been out of control, and I've always said it, even as a town supervisor, being involved in government. When times are good, they spend, and when times turn bad, they can't sustain that level of spending that they have. So clearly, the state is spending too much, we're borrowing too much, and I think we have to look at a real reorganization of our finances in the state of New York. So I'm sure we'll talk about a number of other issues and all, but obviously like health care and what have you. But clearly, it is time for a change. I mean, we have to fight for change because government, they're not just going to give it to us. And I think this year, going back to I think what you said about people being angry, people I've never seen in all my 30 years of being involved, people are anxious to vote this year. I've never seen them as anxious as they are today. So, thank you.